Well, I am excited to be sitting here with Paul Hanson, CEO of Sanford Health, to talk about this, my favorite topic, leadership development, as we enter the SME Leadership Summit coming up with John C. Maxwell on June 1st. First of all, again, leadership development or leadership in itself is a huge topic, right? How do you view or think about leadership in terms of the scope of how it impacts you?
You know, first of all, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk to you about this topic today. It's a great opportunity for me. I look at leadership, from the standpoint of being a steward. I think that each and every one of us has gifts that we can provide to, anything that we want to do, whether it's working in a hospital, working in a bank, being a private business owner. Everybody's got the ability to do some pretty remarkable things. But if you're going to grow your business, if you want to be part of a business that's going to grow, I think that stewardship piece is one that you have to embrace.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be. I'm not going to be here for 100 years, obviously, but I am going to be part of the history of Sanford Health for perhaps 10 to 15 years. So what can I do as a steward of those assets being financial, operational, and most importantly human? What can I do to make my impact as a steward of those resources while the time I'm here? And I think if you never forget that, if you're going to be engaged with your organization, with your team, I think that is probably the biggest aspect that you can bring to a leadership role.
Yes, I've heard a lot of different references to what leadership and the topic leadership means to a lot of folks. But when we get into that stewardship, I love that word because most people don't think about. We've all been gifted a variety of things, whether that's relationships, a skill set, and when you think about it, how do I honor these giftings I've been given or these opportunities to serve? I love that tie-in. When I think about leadership, whether that's personal success or organizational success, how would you say, as an organization, Stanford, obviously you guys are everywhere. You're a very big organization, very successful organization. How does leadership play a part in the success that you guys have had as a organization or a business?
That's a great question. I think what makes us special is that our leadership team listens with the intent of being influenced. So in other words, as we are engaging our people, we're engaging others, we're engaging people outside of healthcare, there's a variety of ideas that come into play on, whatever the issue is that you're working with. And if you're willing to accept the fact that, hey, there could be a great idea coming from somebody outside of healthcare that helps you in, your position, the issue that perhaps you're working on right now, it gives you better flexibility, gives you better understanding, and actually it allows you to engage with more ideas that would be beneficial to other parts of your operation. And I think that's what makes Stanford special from the standpoint that we do listen with the intent of being influenced.
Yeah. Yeah, because you guys have 20,000 employees.
Well, we got close to 50,000 employees
50,000,
now.
wow.
Yeah, throughout 27 states or whatever the number is today. But here in the Sioux Falls market, we have close to 9,000 employees that are part of the operation here.
That's huge. And so on that, this is obviously the inaugural SME Leadership Summit, and you guys are one of the lead sponsors. Again, thank you for that. Why do you think it's so important to give back in this manner when you talk about leadership? Because obviously, in terms of sponsorship, you guys sponsor a lot of things. You guys are very active in the community. You are a major player in terms of helping move our community forward. Why do you think this is so important, having a leadership summit for our community to gather, to hear from the guru himself, John Maxwell? Why is this important as a community as we advance forward into the 21st century as a city of Sioux Falls, and why is that important to elevate this topic here?
Yeah, another great question. I think for me personally, it's because we're given so much. We're given so much from our community. We're given so much from the people that have lived here, from the people that were here long before we came here, that set the benchmark for us in terms of what the expectations are for our business, for our community, for our region, our state. Yeah. And that culture, if you will, is embedded in who we are. And I think the thing for me is that culture allows us to open our arms wider. And I think that Midwest culture that we have is welcoming people to come in. I want people to come into this state. I want them to enjoy the benefits that we have from being a South Dakota native. There are so many opportunities here that anybody can be successful. And I think that we owe that back to the people that are coming in, so that when we get ready to hand it off ourselves, we just kind of create that additional legacy of those that came before us.
Yeah, I love that word legacy, right? When you, I'm born and raised Sioux Falls as well, and my business partner Vonnie just started a brand, Flyover Country, and historically, folks had left Sioux Falls, and I gotta go to the big city. And what's fun is now that, Sioux Falls has really changed over these last even 10, 20 years, and to see people come back and to see the evolution of our community as we look forward, to see where it's going and to see people participate in a different scope. To a point, I think, we have the opportunity to, again, set a precedent of, we're not trying to be an Omaha or Minneapolis. We really are in this place where we get to define and chart our own course. As I think about that, when I was growing up, I didn't know what impact I wanted to have. I wasn't really involved in the community very much. But it was about my mid-20s when I got a hold of leadership development, and that really changed the course of my life. Being able to actually read some John Maxwell books kind of changed the course for me. How has leadership development itself helped change and shape your trajectory in your path of success to get into be CEO of Sanford Health?
I think for me, I grew up in a very small town in southwest Wisconsin. And in a small town, everybody knows your business, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to help.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to work on a small farm, a corn seed farm, and it was a privilege to work there. Mm-hmm. It was truly a privilege to be able to work there. But there were expectations. There were expectations that you're going to work hard. You're going to be part of a team. You're going to communicate well with your teammates that are working with you and alongside you, in the fields. And I took that on to college and kind of applied that there as well. I had a great experience with a lot of mentors that were in healthcare and outside of healthcare, who taught me, number one, be humble.
Yeah.
Be humble and recognize that, you got to surround yourself with people that are better than you are.
Yeah.
That are going to have different ideas, but they're going to be smart, they're going to be articulate. And the bottom line mission is to make the organization better.
Yes.
So that if everybody's on that page, you're going to do well. I think that having other influences in my life, I've worked with a CEO who was a visionary that, here is what could be. Yeah. And when you're operational in nature, like many of my roles have been, to have somebody that's really pushing that envelope to go further out, mm-hmm. it challenges you to think outside the box a bit.
Yeah.
It makes you uncomfortable, and I think that's good. And I think that the ability for us to bring people in, to work together, to have a challenge, to push our limits beyond maybe what we thought about in our own box, but to think about something bigger. That's the influences that I've had that have really kind of developed who I am as a leader.
I like that. And I think that's big as we dream about, again, what is this next version of our community? And that's why I love, the work that you guys are doing at Sanford, because again, you're challenging, like, not another thing. Yes. Why not? right? Because we can. Let's push the envelope with the undertone of the Midwestern modesty or being humble along the way. But you use the word, teamwork, and that's such a huge component. I look at, championship organizations. The one that has long-standing success is when the veterans put their arm around the rookies, right? And they really help them walk back. There's a lot of conversation being had around this topic of send the elevator back down. We talk a lot about it at Think 3D. We aiming at 2025 when we're going to see the largest changeover of leadership as we've ever seen, with boomers retiring, et cetera. As you think about sending the elevator back down, what are some of those characteristics that you think that this next generation leaders are going to need to have and be able to tackle to truly navigate this chart forward as we enter into 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, for me, communication has always been important, right? Mm-hmm. And I think how we communicate, maybe there's different styles of how we communicate. We're seeing a younger generation use different, modalities in terms of how they communicate with each other. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it's different.
Yep.
I think that the enthusiasm that you see from younger leaders that want to make a difference, I remember when I was a younger leader and I wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so that same enthusiasm still exists. It's just a little different. It's different times in terms of what resources are available. And so I think as maybe a more senior leader, to look back down, setting that elevator back down to the next crop that's coming back up, to embrace those changes and to understand that our way was maybe pretty good, but their way is going to be better.
Yeah.
Because they know the opportunities, they know the expectations, they know what organizations need to be and should be. I think taking more personal accountability, from the professional and personal, I think is, it's vitally important for the next group of leaders coming in, because they're going to have different challenges as we grow locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally into a more diverse population.
Yeah.
We have to be able to embrace those cultural changes.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think, think about this word. We define leadership the same way that John Maxwell does, is leadership is influence, simply put. How do you view, kind of twofold to that? Because we know, we know knowledge by itself isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. And I think experienced knowledge is wisdom, right? So as we get older and we gain this wisdom, how do we leverage that influence to, again, help guide the next generation of those around us? Here's some mistakes to avoid, but at the same time, what you were talking about, technology is advancing so quickly that they know things and are tapped into different things. How do we effectively leverage our influence, I would say maybe both in organizations and, as you mentioned, diversity? Our community is growing. The dynamic is changing. We're seeing 40% diversity in our schools. As we think about what the makeup of our community is going to be different, how do we leverage then that influence as organizations to help steer and guide the way for a successful tomorrow in our community?
A great question. For me, relationships are really important to me, and developing relationships that are based on trust and respect. Raising my kids, as we're going through some tough years, I remember saying to my kids, even when they were preteen, but it helped later on when they were teenagers, to say, hey, look, if you respect me, I'll respect you. And I think that, as you're working with people and you develop those relationships, the big part of being able to really take the next step is, I trust you. I respect you. I might disagree with the position you're taking in this particular issue, but I trust your instinct in this, and we're going to go with that.
Yeah.
And I think that once you get there and people see that, I think that the influence you can have on not only maybe your immediate team, but as that word gets out, that, hey, the president and CEO of the local ops team, he believes in this initiative because he trusts us.
Yeah.
And he's gonna fight to get the resources for us to make this happen. And so I think as your actions, words matter, actions matter, right? And so I think that if you develop that type of relationship and you can produce those opportunities, your team will just take over and wonderful things happen.
Yeah, that's a big one. You talk about respect. Again, imagine the day when people were getting a handshake really meant that's all you needed. You didn't have to have a legal department to do all these things, where those things actually mattered. And there's, again, a time-tested, proven value in, again, being able to trust, look somebody in the eye, build those relationships to say, again, it's not about me, it's about us. And, we have a saying, a better you is better for everybody, or a better community is better for everybody.
Right.
And again, I think over this last year, especially through COVID, being able to see that the collaboration between Sanford and Avera, again, put our community in such a great position to where we're at today. But in that same vein of collaboration, when you think about, some of the challenges, maybe unforeseen challenges that we see coming down the pipeline, where do you see that need for greater organization or business collaboration to come together to help lead us forward, maybe even give some insight to Sioux Falls, which you're one of the co-chairs, right? Why is it important, and how do we continue to encourage businesses to see the bigger the sum, as we work together, that's going to benefit all of us? Why is that important?
I think as we look at, businesses, as we look at Well, I'll use healthcare. It's kind of where I'm most familiar with, right? If we look at healthcare and what's happened, in how we deliver care, as we look at how we're paid for certain services in healthcare, you realize really quickly that there's an ability for us to align maybe like services or maybe like business opportunities that, look, if somebody can do it better than we can, then why aren't we talking to them? If there are limited resources in a particular area, then why aren't we talking to a group of individuals to say, hey, we think there's a need here and there's an opportunity for us as a community, but we can't subsidize the whole thing. Yeah. But how about we all take a piece and make a difference for the community? Maybe it's related to healthcare initiatives, maybe it's related to housing, maybe it's related to economic development. But how do we set aside our competitive differences, for the betterment of the community and the state? And there are some issues and opportunities that are going to be easy for us to maybe sit down and talk about and do. And there are others that, just because of the regulatory, environment, we won't be able to. Unless, of course, we push the envelope a bit more, which, maybe is part of that next generation to say, hey, this doesn't make any sense to waste resources like this. So I think, from my standpoint, when you can set aside that competitiveness for, the better good, everybody, all boats rise. Like you said before, all boats rise. So I think that's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, again, it's not about my slice of the pie. Let's bake a bigger pie.
Right.
Which actually my mindset changed. We serve on the chamber board together, right? And part of the chamber's whole benefit, and we're trying to get new members in. It's like, well, I don't really see the benefit of the chamber. I'm like, if the chamber helps encourage better business and more economic, healthy well-being, there's more dollars floating around.
Yeah.
But in that, I think, I think as an organization from Stanford, right, you guys are an inspiration to a lot of businesses of what's possible, again, dreaming big. But on the topic of inspiration, what are some of the things that inspire you? What gets your heart going, motivation going, et cetera? What inspires you and why?
I haven't been asked that question for a long time. I think for me, when I was younger, it was all about, how do I grow up, a healthcare entity large enough to get the next job. Fully transparent here on that one, and now I'm going to be watched everywhere on that. But I think as you get into a more senior role with a few more years of experience under your belt, you realize how can I provide a service, be part of providing a service that retains the good culture of who we are and what we do and why we do it, and how do we expand that and stay within that guiding principle of who started us, 125 years ago in our case. And does it make a difference? And if it makes a difference today and it makes a difference tomorrow and it wasn't there, before, that's a pretty cool thing. When you look at pediatrics, for example, here in South Dakota, and you look at the investments that we've made, in pediatrics, the service that we have where people can get care here. They don't have to fly to, the Mayo. They don't have to fly to, for wherever they're, Denver. They can come here and know that they're getting the best care by the people that live here, that have gone to school here, that have trained here. That makes it special. And so when you're investing in your own and you've been part of that process the entire time, there's a sense of pride that comes along with that.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of goes back into the, do they trust us? Do we have the respect? Do we earn the respect of those that want to use our services in any business?
Yeah.
And that's the part that you feel pretty good about. And that's the part where, as you get ready to hand it off to people that are much more gifted than I, you're going to be in good hands.
Yeah. So speaking of that handoff, I mean, again, we all of us, if you unpack our lives, right, there's those key moments, those key influencers, those key people that our life would be different if we didn't have access to that. Who are maybe a few people that had inspiration in your life, who had maybe some of those key influences, or maybe it was just a comment, something like that just made a difference in your life that helped on your trajectory of success? Who are those few inspirations for you?
Yeah, I mentioned a little earlier that I had individuals who were in the agricultural business, that provided me with my first job, if you will, back in Southwest Wisconsin. I've had a number of individuals in the healthcare profession that have given me some very wise words, to say, hey, again, be humble, understand who you are, understand who you're not, and that might be more important than thinking who you are.
Yeah.
But I think that from my perspective, recognizing that nobody's perfect. Mm-hmm. Nobody. Everybody's got strengths. Everybody's got weaknesses. So what are those little, gems that you get from people? Those words of wisdom. And a lot of times, what I take away from people is their failures. They'll tell you about, hey, this is what happened to me, and it didn't work out well, and here's why.
Yeah.
And so you spend your time talking about the failures. Well, in essence, the failures have become a teaching moment and a teaching opportunity to a younger person, which I was at the time, to say, watch out for these things. These are traps that you can find yourself into, and it's important to recognize those earlier so you're not wasting, resources, your time, or your reputation. Mm-hmm. And so that's been important, for me going forward. And I've got, like I said, I've got a number of healthcare executives that I think very highly of. I've got a school superintendent who I think highly of in my past that provided me a lot of guidance and resource. And then, of course, my roots being in Southwest Wisconsin. So I could give you 12 names today, and what, I think of 12 tonight. There are just so many people. If you're willing to ask somebody who's got some experience, and they're willing to give you the time to give you their 2 cents worth, what are you out?
Yeah. So you mentioned the word failure. I think, again, that's just ad hoc, I think an important topic to think about, because most people, again, want that. There's no clear path to success through not failing, right? You have to be willing to fail. How do you, being as 50,000 employees, organization as big as you guys are, obviously there's tons of failures along the way. We always say, I heard someone say one time, they never fail, they only win or they learn. How do you guys, when you think about the importance of being able to take risk, because you guys obviously take risks, how do you guys think about risk and encourage risk? Because if there's no risk, you guys aren't as big as you are, you're not as successful as you are. How do you guys, or maybe you personally, think about risk in terms of a necessary part of the journey?
Again, for me, obviously there's, everybody wants to take a business and make it better. So there's that. For me, the relationship piece, again, ties into this. Yeah. If you trust the people that you're with, and you respect their skill sets, and an opportunity presents itself, and maybe it's an opportunity that has unique challenges that you're going to have to figure out how to work out, well, I'd rather work it out with a team that I trust and respect, and the resources are there for us to give it our best shot. And if that best shot isn't good enough today, you know what? I bet that if we revisit it maybe a few years down the road with other lessons learned, maybe we create an opportunity for those to follow us to take another shot at it.
Yeah, that's big. I think that's a lesson all of us will learn. So lastly, again, John Maxwell, again, I've seen him speak on virtually plenty of times. So he will be here in Sioux Falls June 1st. What is one of the things that you're looking forward to most, having him here, having over 1,000 people gathering together to talk about leadership, this leadership summit? What's got you excited about this event?
Yeah, I think anytime you bring in an expert, anytime you bring in a legend, it gives you the opportunity to see how he's going to embrace the audience, engage with the audience, put something out there that's going to make you maybe think differently than what you have in the past. And those are the opportunities that create additional discussions, additional challenges, additional opportunities. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us within the Sioux Falls community and within the state of South Dakota.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time. You're a busy guy, but again, thank you to Sanford Health for being one of the lead sponsors of this, making this event possible, and hope everyone comes out and sees a phenomenal event. So thank you, Paul.
You bet. Hey, thanks very much.
Awesome.